Good morning, everyone. We'd like to get it started here in the Department and Agency Subcommittee. It's February the 7th in hearing room 2, 9 o'clock. Lisa, please take the roll.
Bricken. Carringer.
Present.
Chisholm. Haston. Kiesling. Littleton. Chairman Holsclaw.
Present.
Chairman Holsclaw, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Does the committee have any personal orders or anything? Yes, Mary Littleton, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of constituents. One is Sean Baker, who is with Freeman Recovery in Dixon County. So let's make him welcome, please. And also Bob Williams over here, and he's actually a constituent as well. So welcome. Let's make him welcome too. Thank y'all for being here.
I didn't know you had your own support group here. We do have a calendar to take up today, and we have several. Evidently, that one's got. You got the ones that's off notice. Okay, basically, we've had a couple to give everybody an update. Taking rolled or off notice number 2, 2020 has been rolled to the alcohol calendar, which is 3/6. And then we've had Bill HB 1661 by Reagan taken off notice. And then item number 4, which is 2111 by Boyd, has been taken off notice for everybody that needs to update on where we're at. So with that, we'll get started. We have HB 1885 in front of us. We have a motion and a second, and the lead name here is Lambert. Do you think you can fill his shoes?
Mr. Chairman, please don't hold, Mr. Chairman, please don't hold that against me.
You're ready to roll. You've got your second. Good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1885, this is a cleanup legislation for the Department of General Services regarding the Division of Vehicle and Asset Management. This bill removes the reporting requirements with regard to energy efficient vehicles. The department will still collect the data about the purchase of energy efficient vehicles. And also, under the current law, the commissioner is tasked to establishing rules and regulations for the housing, repair, and operations of state-owned vehicles. And the comptroller has stepped in and said this bill would also remove the requirement and allow for the commissioner to simply make policies for the same.
Okay. Members, we have questions? Call for the question. So we're voting on HB 1885. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're moving on to full.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
So I don't need to do number 2, 3 since I've done all those. So it takes us all the way down to item number 5, which is HJR 0801. We have a motion second. Calvin, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, committee. Members, this is a resolution that is urging our federal government, in light of the fentanyl crisis that we have going on in this nation and the human trafficking problem that we have, it is urging the federal government to use every resource that it has at its disposal to do its constitutional duty and secure our border. It has some language in it commending Governor Abbott for the steps he's taken to secure our border, and commending Governor Lee on our prior support and urging and praising continued support of securing our nation's border. And with that, I stand ready for questions.
Members, we have questions. No questions, no statements. Nobody's awake this morning. Question's been called, so we're voting on HJR 0801. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're moving on.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Which brings us to item number 6.
Motion.
Got a motion and a second. It's HB 1795 by Representative Capley. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. This bill establishes the Natural Disaster Relief Program, which would be a state grant program to aid counties that have experienced a natural disaster. It would also establish several minimum requirements that must be met in order to apply for the grant, including but not limited to meeting the threshold for federal disaster relief. It would also establish a maximum annual grant award of $250,000 per county per calendar year, and those counties would have availability to those funds. Mr. Chairman, I do have a few constituents here from Lawrence and Wayne County in support of the bill. As I'm sure many of you know, we had a tornado that affected many Tennesseans last year, and as a state, I think we're all trying to be proactive and finding ways where we can help the rural areas and the counties that maybe are not as fortunate. So with that explanation, I stand ready for questions.
Members? Call for question. We're rolling right along. So we're voting on HB 1795. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? Bill moves on,
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee.
which brings us to item number 7. Representative Hemmer, you are recognized on HB 2141. Do I have a motion and a second? So you're properly before us, and explain your bill to us, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This bill would increase penalties for trespassing and other related game and fish violations from $10 to $50 in the code today up to $500 as decided by a judge. The genesis of this bill happened last year, and I sent y'all a picture of it in my email this week when I was got a picture from a cell cam of a gentleman who was not on my turkey lease with a turkey on the back of hanging on his back as he was walking out. And so luckily, TWRA was able to catch them pretty quickly. But from my research and talking with TWRA and the TWRA Law Enforcement Division, this has gotten to be a pretty bad problem of trespassing. And as you could tell from the code, $25 or $10 to $50 isn't much of a deterrent, and that hasn't been changed since 1961. And so appreciate TWRA able to kind of work with me on this and looking through these antiquated fines in the statute and update the penalty. So basically that's all the bills does is going through all the TWRA fines and give a judge ability to increase the fine to an actual amount that would hopefully deter this criminal activity from happening.
Just for the record, I don't know if we had a first and a second, so. That's what I thought.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, that's what I thought. You slipped it well. Continue on, sorry.
I think that was all, Mr. Chairman.
I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
You know, of these increased fines, I think I saw a physical note of somewhere south of 400K. Where does that money go? Does it go to the TWRA or does that go to the general fund?
Yeah, and I actually think that it was a the fiscal note was probably a lot more than I thought it would be, and also from a revenue standpoint. But it goes to the Wildlife Resources Fund. That would be the actual maximum penalty. So I actually got the stats from TWRA of these citations that have happened over the last 23 years, and there have been a total of 3,650 citations and 815 warnings. And so on average, it's about 158 a year. So my math is if you did the actual top of the range penalty of 500, it would be around $79,000, which the fiscal note had it. And it did a very detailed fiscal note, you could see. And it had an average of 442, but I think it's much lower than that. But again, to your question, all the money will be going back to the TWRA Wildlife Resources Fund.
So that would, the way I take it, that would be the fine, and then you'd also have a court cost.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Sorry. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It would be a court cost determined by the individual county.
And then this fine, it's up to the judge to determine the amount of that fine?
Correct. Yeah, but currently in statute, they're only able to go up to $50 right now, which is a lot cheaper than a hunting lease.
Members, we have questions? Representative Kerr Hazing, or Chairman Hastings, you are recognized. Can you spell that last name for us?
Haston. Thank you. It said about the possible local costs dealing with incarceration, and then at the bottom of the fiscal note, it says it's believed that local governments receive a portion of this additional fine revenue. However, the TWRA was not able to provide information regarding the portion of revenue retained by local governments. If it does go on, I'd like to maybe get some clarity from TWRA on if we're going to have this kind of influx of money coming in, if there is a local cost, to maybe have some assurance that that's going to be helped to offset some of that incarceration cost if it's there. That's all I had. Thanks.
Can we address any of that?
I don't think. Look, Mr. Chairman, I
So-
believe they don't have an answer, and we're
Okay.
happy to address that in full committee.
I was getting ready to say, let's make sure we're prepared when we go to full committee that we're able to answer those questions. Other questions, comments? Chairman Keesley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. Now, I'd like to know, Representative Amber, what constitutes the difference between a fine and a warning? Can you or Mike tell us? I mean,
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Get some clarity here.
Yeah, I think from my understanding, and I'll be happy to let go out of session, let T. Brady say, but from my understanding, when they actually write the citation, that's when have to pay the fine versus getting a warning. So in my example, the landowner did not want to file charges. And so the individual that did the trespassing, he just got a warning in that case. But I've got heads up saying I've said that
I'm getting
correctly.
a nod. I'm sorry, Chairman.
You're recognized.
I'm getting a nod out here, or we are as a committee. Can we, could we request go out of session? Just a
We'll go out of
minute?
session to get explanation from TWRA or T-Bray, as Mr. Hemmer says. You didn't know you had a new acronym, T-Bray.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name's Mike Bell. I'm the Legislative Director for Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. With me, I have Mr. Daniel Cox, who's Associate General Counsel for the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency.
Okay.
And forgive me, Mr. Chairman, but these ears don't work good. I need to ask Mr. Chairman Keesland to repeat the question.
I'd be glad to. Thank you. I'm still going to address you as Senator Bell. But maybe my question goes to Council Cox here. The question was what constitutes the difference between a fine and a warning? But again, I think the short answer is that if the property owner decides not to pursue, then that would transition into a warning. Is that correct?
That certainly could be the case. The officers have the authority to issue a warning anytime they feel like it would be appropriate, if the fine would be unnecessary in order to stop the action from happening again. So a lot of times it would just be a warning, but in cases that rise to the seriousness of needing to issue a formal citation, at that point, the fine would be applied.
Mr. Chairman, very
Yes,
similar to the situation with a THP officer stopping somebody for a traffic violation. I was given a verbal warning a couple months ago.
In theory, that's the same.
For that. And our officers have that same discretion depending on the circumstances of the infraction.
You could be having a good day or a bad day, right?
That's right.
So one final, Chairman, if I may.
You already
Again,
got it.
now we've got a max here of 500. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Chairman.
recognized. We're not going back in session yet.
Mr. Chairman, could I add one comment to when he mentioned the maximum fine?
Sure.
One thing, again, I think Representative Hemmer covered this, but this fiscal note assumes maximum fine. It also assumes all fines are collected. And forgive the reminiscing, but I know from my time on the Judiciary Committee and chairing it, less than 30% of fines are actually collected. When he mentioned that figure of $79,000, we actually believe that is much closer to the actual fiscal impact of this, not just because it assumes every citation will be given at the maximum level, but it also assumes they'll be collected. And statewide, across the board, not just with wildlife, but with all judicial proceedings, the average is less than 30% of fines are collected.
So my question to you is, and what happens do they actually do jail time, or do they just?
That's the judicial proceeding, doesn't affect us. I mean, it's not, we don't impact that proceeding. That's up to the judge.
Okay.
Yep.
And I do know, in the past, in the 60s, 70s, that your officers were pretty firm. And I think now it's kind of transitioning to be more friendly.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
I do know that, and I think
Yep.
they've worked on that, and I've seen some improvement.
Absolutely.
Work with them and not against them.
Well, the General Assembly has actually put in, when Council Cox mentioned the opportunity to give a warning versus a citation, that's actually in statute. It's been added 2 different times, I think both in the boating section and in the wildlife section, where we are able, in fact, we've been given specific authority to give a warning instead of a citation. And we do that like every law enforcement agency on a regular basis when we believe the circumstances warrant it.
I mean, all work together and try to move to the common goal. So
Yep.
we appreciate you. Any other questions, members? Seeing none, we'll go back in session. Any other questions, members? Seeing none, we're voting on HB 2141 by Representative Hemmer. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? You're moving on now, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Really appreciate it.
And that completes our calendar. Any members have any special personal orders, announcements? Motion adjourned. We are adjourned.